Our first order of business is to set the public hearing for the GAN appropriations limit for June 5th at 1 o'clock. This is by legislative requirement, and I would like a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to set the public hearing for June 5th, 2018 at 1 o'clock. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Our second order of business is general public comments. The board invites comments at this time on any items that do not appear on the agenda and are related to the college. Speakers are asked to give your name, residence area, and any affiliation you represent. You will have 3 minutes to comment. Questions can be addressed to the president's office. And I have one comment card from Mr. Dawson Darling.
Hello, esteemed board. Well, I'm from McKinleyville, a teacher, and hello, esteemed board. My name is Dawson Darling. I've taught philosophy here for 5 semesters now. The main point I want to make today is that it's simply too easy for good teachers to be fired. So, I lost my job here as a teacher this semester, and well, I was told it was either because I missed the email with the associate faculty availability form, and so the dean figured I would not returning next semester and went ahead and hired someone else, or that it wasn't that, but no reason or explanation otherwise would be given. I was just referred to section 15.4.3.3 of the CBA contract that simply said no reason is needed. And frankly, that sucks. Imagine if it was you, your job. You would at least want something you could take to use to improve yourself as a teacher, or if it was better competition, something you could use to improve yourself as a job candidate. That's not unreasonable, right? This gives too much leeway. Given a section of the contract for associate part-time faculty, teachers can be fired for any reason whatsoever, even no reason at all, by which I literally mean the dean doesn't have to give you a reason. How does this look to potential hires? How does this feel morally? This dissuades and scares away good teachers, and this lets too many get lost between the cracks after the fact. The quality of education goes down, and down declines the enrollment of good students. I don't need to tell you that we are hemorrhaging in terms of enrollment, and this isn't helping. In fact, this loose treatment of teachers have been happening for some time, years now. And it may be very well linked to the low rates of enrollment today. This has been a problem before these deans, before this president, for the nature of the contract and essential looseness for part-time faculty has remained the same going back years. It's too easy to lose decent teachers here. We need better job security. There is no job security. Even if you try to do your best and do good work, even if students say you're your favorite teacher, even in the best of circumstances, you can be out on a whim or a glitch. And this shouldn't be too unreasonable to ask for. But if you do your job well, you can expect to keep that job, barring, of course, any budget issues and the like, of course. That isn't unreasonable, no. In fact, it used to be the promise of America. Do good work, and you can live well and safe without fear. This is people's livelihood at stake here. Let's try to do better. It shouldn't come down to a missed email or no cause given whatsoever. We put in blood, sweat, and tears for pay you can barely live on. We deserve better. We can do better. And you can make it happen. Please do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We move on to member comments. Board members may briefly report on college-related events and meetings they've attended. Any board member comments? Well, I would like to comment. that I attended the budget forum on the Del Norte campus on April 23rd. It was well attended, and the presentation on both scenarios 1 and 2 that we have talked about, and the 3-year budget projection was very clear. And I think that the new report format, written format for our budgeting reports was helpful to people attending. Dr. Snowflamer and Dr. Harrison and Ms. Morrison were there to do the presentation, and it was a good event. We move to board committee reports. Are there any board committee reports? Trustee Iman.
Thank you, President Matthew. The President's Evaluation Committee, which is composed of myself, Trustee Deister, and Trustee Biggin, met today at noon and reviewed the board member responses and the constituent responses, and I will give a full report in closed session.
Okay, thank you. There any, Trustee Dorn?
And just an update on the Board Eval Committee, which is Trustee Kelly, Mullery, and myself. The survey results have been tabulated. They're going to go out to the 3 of us, and then we'll follow board policy continuing on.
Great, thank you.
And everybody did fill it out.
Good. Okay, that concludes board committee reports. We move on to item 1.5, discussion on homelessness and food security. In your board packet, you have a fair amount of background information regarding education codes and board policies, and some other comments. And to begin our discussion, I'll call on President Snowflamer to make some comments.
Certainly, thank you. As trustees, as you know, that Ed Code does prevent us from having a public shelter on campus. So what we've decided to do is try our best to focus on the 100+ homeless students that have already self-identified, seeing how we can, as an institution, support our own homeless students who are living in the woods, in their cars, et cetera, taking long bus trips from Trinidad, and just trying their best to be successful at the institution. What I would like in this particular item is to get the board's direction and the board's position on how CR should be positioned in terms of the homelessness issue.
Okay, so open for discussion. Is there anybody who would like to make a beginning comment, share a beginning thought? Trustee Mullery?
I'm wondering if President Snowflamer would provide us with some of the ideas that either came out of the event. I'm sorry.
Summit.
Yeah, and further conversations that you might have had with attorneys and your leadership team regarding what you believe are reasonable options.
Certainly, we did not touch upon specific actions on the recent homelessness summit. We wanted just to lay the groundwork on what homelessness means to this particular area, both Del Norte and Humboldt and also Trinity counties. Put a face to the issue versus saying it's just a generic issue, but really bring home to the faces and the students and our folks who are homeless and they need help. What we want to do is focus the actions that we want to identify in our fall summit. So what we want to do as a district so far that we've talked about as vice presidents and other administrators in key areas is to hold the fall summit to identify how we can collaborate with the public, with our community members in solving the homelessness issue, and also working with HSU and HCOE on those. But also making sure that we have the place of the things, the processes internally, that when a student self-identifies as homeless, we know where to send them as a connection, a referral to the outside community, but also a referral to EOPS, DSPS, and other areas, and CalWorks. But what we have talked about is how we can set aside some dorm rooms for students who happen to be homeless. But that's an issue that we need to talk about finances and processes and how to do that. So I'm looking at two different ways. Number one, housing students if we can, but also how we can set up other processes for referral, but also talking to the student government to see if they will set aside some funds that a homeless student can be allocated for their applications to outside resources.
Trustee Mallory?
If I could just do a quick follow-up. Thank you, President Snowflamber. You know, and thank you for the report. In the last two paragraphs of your report, you identified several things that you are doing and you're contemplating in the future. Is this what you would like the board to comment on?
I would like the board to comment on the things that we're doing, but also the things that the board wants the administration to also focus on. Basically, yes.
Trustee Imai?
Thank you, President Matthews. This is a very complex situation. It's a national problem. It's not local and unique to College at Redwoods. And our financial picture here is tenuous at best. So my recommendation is that President Snowflamer and his cabinet work on a proposal that has dollars and cents attached to it. If you're talking about space, we know exactly what we're talking about, where it is going to be, how many, what is the cost to us, because one dorm room has X revenue attached to it, and if we give that up, then how would the budget look? Ms. Morrison should be involved with that. And so then in light of that packet of information, the board, I think, can be meaningful. All of us want to resolve the problem. All of us want to be the good guy and the good gal and say, let's do it. We can do it. But clearly there are limitations. Clearly this is much bigger than CR. So I would personally appreciate that kind of report.
Trustee Kelly?
Do we happen to have any clearly stated policies about this situation?
And would you explain the question a little bit more? From
I was thinking about maybe administration policies. I don't know if, I think being a community college, we're always going to have a certain percentage of the population that's going to be related to this, whether we're suffering hard times as a nation or not at the national level, local level. And so I wonder if maybe we need to have some kind of a policy in place once we've gone through this exercise of studying the issue and studying legally what our positions can possibly be, and studying our budget in the real moment is certainly a solution for now. But having a policy that can guide us going forward would be something I think that we could benefit from.
Trustee Dorn?
So I had two questions. One is, you mentioned the local property managers.
Yes.
What would your, what do you expect from them?
The feedback that we have been getting from students is that they would pay $45 or $50 for the application fee, and they wouldn't hear back from it. Or a student who's homeless would want to apply to 3 or 4 different housings, and then they can't afford $45 times as many applications that they have. So what we're looking at is how can we help students just to apply for the application fee?
So not all, that's sort of an interesting comment that I appreciate. Not all landlords charge the fee, and there is a particular local company that does charge a fee and does not get back to any applicants.
Interesting.
So not just the student
Oh,
sect. So, I might suggest that you might talk to the Board of Realtors, because most of the local property managers are members of that, and see if they are somewhere that they could help with that. Because I know there are some scholarship funds, like from Mark Nicholson, money there that might be able to be used. The second thing is I appreciated your comment about the homeless in some of our abandoned buildings. But could you put students in those buildings?
No, because those buildings are condemned.
Okay, and that's what I was just wondering about.
Yeah, we cannot do that.
And there's no way to, even if we did a community fundraiser, to bring those buildings into condition to house students.
If you remember, the reason why we have the 2 new academic buildings.
Right, no,
Because we didn't have the money to retrofit the other buildings.
I was just wondering if it was cheaper to retrofit for an apartment than for classrooms.
We were talking multiple millions of dollars.
Okay, that was just
To
my second
retrofit,
question.
yes.
I would comment, I was interested in your citing the idea of identifying potential funding options that could support setting aside some rooms for homeless students.
We have to be, yes.
So that's something that can be explored.
We have been talking about that. We have to be very careful because we can't use general fund money for this. It has to come from the foundation or student government or some other
Or some
fundraising
other-
activities.
Or some potential other
Auxiliaries,
outside source of
yes.
some kind.
That's the only way we'll be able to set those funds aside.
Right. And how many total dorm spaces do we have? How many students can we serve in the dorms
We
approximately?
have 150 spaces, 147 spaces.
Okay,
So 2 per room. And
right,
it cost us annually about $3,000 per student just for the dorm room.
yeah.
Am I close?
I don't know about what it costs to operate. I can tell you.
He's our dorm director, by the
Right.
way.
My thought was just that we can identify at a given time almost that many homeless students.
Yeah.
So the dorms, while a potential for a limited number of students might be, certainly aren't the answer to the problem either, because we can't fill them all with homeless students. Personally, I think focusing on the food insecurity and referral to resources are 2 things that we definitely can do that can assist those students. They don't solve every problem, but they can materially assist those students. And in the larger conversation, I think the college plays an important role in the community and being part of that larger conversation. People who have expertise in various areas who can contribute to that, including probably some of our students. My own opinion is that our responsibility beyond the civic conversation is with our students on our campuses and how we can specifically and materially assist them.
Thank you, and I agree. One thing that I think that we as an educational institution, we have an obligation is to be a foundation for conversation and collaborating with HCOE and HSU to use our collective wisdom for our faculty and staff to keep the conversation going. And that's one other key piece that I'd like to move forward with.
And there will be a fall summit that the college will be a part of,
Co-sponsoring, yes.
co-sponsoring it.
Yep.
Trustee Biggin?
Is there any information from our neighboring districts of efforts that they've made to address the homeless students that they're serving?
They're in just our predicament as well, because the issue is so much broader than just our students. Some schools are actually contemplating building dorms, and and if you do a private entity to finance your dorms, then you have to also set some aside for low income. So some schools are looking at actually doing that. But for the most part, they're in a quandary how to help their homeless students as well. They're focusing on food pantry issues. They're also trying to focus on just having some, like a loan, a student loan available through the student government that students can apply for.
Okay. Also, I appreciate the fact that we're working with faculty and staff to be sensitive to the social and emotional needs of that population of students. And certainly not putting them in a position that singles them out or makes them feel different from the rest of the students, that respects their privacy.
Any other discussion at the moment? Is this of assistance?
This is helpful.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, we move on to the consent calendar action items. Items 2.1 through 2.6. Are there any items on the consent calendar that a trustee wishes to pull? Trustee Kelly?
2.4.
Trustee Dorn?
2.3.
Anyone else? And I would like to pull 2.1. So, regarding consent calendar action items 2.2, 2.5, and 2.6, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We go back to item 2.1, approve minutes. I had a correction under the consent calendar items for the March 6th meeting regarding the curriculum committee. The minutes state President Matthews requested the automatic 5-year update for curriculum, which would be inappropriate, and which my comment was that I appreciated seeing them regularly, the 5-year updates regularly on the curriculum committee schedule, that we were keeping up with that process. Okay. Any other comment on the minutes? Motion to approve 2.1.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. 2.3, approve contracts. Trustee Dorn.
I need to abstain on this, is what I pulled it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know how
That's
else to
that-
do that.
that's
because
okay.
I don't-
Yeah,
because
you're not
it's
abstaining.
all of them.
That's fine, appropriate, no problem. Okay, do we have a motion to approve 2.3?
I so moved.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. 2.4, Trustee Kelly.
I was wondering if we could find out how portables are dealt with. I asked you to, but I just wanted to make it open for everybody. When we do construction projects, how those portables are dealt with. Are they leased? Are they owned? And if they're owned, what happens to them after the construction project, and where those funds go if we sell them or whatever?
And I don't have the answer, but I'll work with Stephen and the state to figure out, because the state-funded projects, we'll see how the state's processes are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Dorn?
Oh, there it goes. I was actually thinking about that for the homeless issue, is those trailers that are, if we're reselling them, would it be better to locate them? I.e., the county had, what, PG&E donated, what, 12 or 13 modular homes for the homeless? The county needed to find some place to put them. And so maybe Trustee Kelly, asking that really would be someplace we want to see what we're doing with all those.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment? That said, do we have a motion to approve 2.4?
I so move.
Second? It's It's been moved and seconded to approve 2.4 bond status report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And we approved the others already. So,
I would like to congratulate Julia Morrison, because you're now official, well, thank you, and appreciate it.
yes, and we appreciate it. And we're looking forward to
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to action discussion items. The first is the monthly financial status report. I'll ask for a motion to approve. Second, been moved and seconded. Dr. Snowflamer, do you have comments in addition to the report?
No, actually, I just wanted to point out that, that we did transfer the remaining set aside for the STIRS PERS. That, as the board knows, we set aside a little over $300,000 in the past with the eventuality of using those monies to balance the year's budget with SAS salaries and benefits. So we have used that set aside with this final report. And also, we have about $61,000 remaining in the capital improvement set aside from the one-time funds from a couple years ago. So we've almost exhausted all the set-asides that we've actually set aside, if you will, from the one-time funds a couple years ago.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
May I add one more comment? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
of course.
I apologize for interrupting the flow. But if the board notices that we set aside, we're transferring $50,000 to the Shively Farm. Our forecast in next year is a little over $90,000 set aside going to the transfer out to the Shively Farm.
Noted. So if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the motion to accept the monthly financial status report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We go on to 3.2, the quarterly financial status report. This is an action item. I will ask for a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
There's a second?
Second.
Thank you. President Snowflamer, any additional comments on our 311Q?
This is the third quarter report, and you, of course, the board have seen quarters 1 and 2. On the final and the fourth quarter report, the board will notice that we are going to put some language in section 7 that notes and if there are any challenges that the district faces financially. So since we don't know what the final budget looks like, as we've talked about before, we don't want to add language in there until we know more facts.
Are there any board questions or comments on the quarterly financial report? I will just comment that on both of these, that I appreciate the new format. I have found it very helpful. All those in favor of accepting approving the quarterly financial status report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Item 3.3 is the AACJC Annual Report and Annual Fiscal Report. This is a discussion item. And President Snowflamer?
And I'm going to refer to the Accreditation Liaison Officer, Dr. Hill.
I'm happy to answer questions about the annual report, and I think that Julia Morrison can answer any questions about the fiscal report. And I just want to make one comment about this report asks in several instances about our institution set standards. And so I just wanted you to note that after the accreditation visit that we had, one of the recommendations was to reevaluate our standards. And so our Institutional Effectiveness Committee did that, and they determined that they would reset those. And so you see that in this report with those standards changing in 2017 compared to the other years.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding this report?
Question, Dr. Hill, who's on that group that set the standards?
So I used to co-chair it with Dr. Snowflamer. Now it's co-chaired with our Director of Institutional Research, Paul Chown. And so it has 2 or 3 faculty members there, classified staff representatives, management representatives. So it's one of our shared governance committees.
Okay.
We need to vote on this?
No, it's a discussion,
Action,
information.
discussion.
I know, but they're under the same block of things in the agenda, but this is a discussion. It isn't something that we have to approve. The AACJC Annual Fiscal Report. Vice President Morrison, do you have any comments?
I don't have any comment, but I'm open to any questions there might be.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this report? Trustee Kelly?
Well, and I guess you're going to research it further, but to ask it in public here, there seems to be a huge discrepancy there from 15-16 fiscal year, from 6 million down to 356,179 for 17 for the actuarial accrued. I don't.
Which page?
Oh, I'm sorry. For
Or
page
on number?
3 of 5, top of the page. So I was wondering if maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that.
It is clearly a typo.
Oh, okay.
And I have reached out to the reviewer of the financial report to find out how I can get that corrected.
So the actual figure,
The actual figure is, see the figure just, so that's in section A. It should actually be 6.356179. So that the biggest number you could have typoed in that scenario was missed. So it should be 6.3 million, not 356,000.
okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Good. Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Well,
Oh, sorry, Trustee Biggin.
My comment is I appreciated the fact that our annual audit report is getting submitted on a more timely basis nowadays. I noticed that in the report.
Thank you. We move on to the first read of board policies and administrative procedures. This is discussion, first read. And our ad hoc committees have looked at all of these. So we will begin with BP 2015 Student Trustee. Any comments or questions? BP 2200 Board Duties and Responsibilities. Any comments or questions? BP 2432 President Superintendent Succession. Comments or questions? AP 2712 Conflict of Interest Code. BP 2750 Board Member Absence. Any comments or questions? BP 2800 General Fund Reserve. Comments or questions? I appreciated having that one moving forward. So if there are no comments, questions, suggested changes, these will come back to the board in June for a second read.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Agenda item 3.5, second read of board policies and administrative procedures. This is action items, and there's a long list here. I will attempt not to go too fast, however, we have all been here on these before. First of all, I would like a motion to approve the first block of 4 BPs and APs, which have previously been submitted to the board twice, went to College Council. The College Council approved them with no suggested revisions, and they've come back to us first. So I have a motion to approve those 4.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve 2220, 2435 BP and AP, and BP 2715. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Sorry.
On the next one, I'm just wondering, since everybody's been through these, can you just ask if anybody wants to pull one instead of reading them all?
Without objection, I would be happy to do it that way. We have all seen these before. The changes that we recommended have been made. Those that have no change from before or up to now have been noted. So I think that's an excellent suggestion. Is there anyone who would like to pull one of these from the list for question or discussion? Because if there isn't, we're just going to vote on them.
I move for approval.
Okay, nobody wants to pull any, all right?
If I may,
Excuse me.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. So the vote is to approve sending these to College Council and then.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you for the reminder. So these do go to College Council next, and then they would come back once more. It's been moved and second to approve all of these listed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you for the suggestion. Keep that in mind. Thank you for the reminder. Action discussion, 3.6, award the contract on public bid for demolition of the stadium at the Eureka campus. This is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. President Snowflamer, do you have any additional comments?
I would like to have Stephen Roper give the board, especially the new trustees, a little bit of background on why this particular project is so important to us.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. In 2002, the college engaged,
Is your microphone on, Stephen?
yes, sir, it is. In 2002, the college engaged DASI Engineering to examine our stadium as a result of some damage that had been occurring over time. In 2002, the report stated that the cantilevered roof system was not able to sustain current wind rates, and as that wind rate calculation has gotten more and more strict, it's less and less likely to pass any muster. So we did another engineering study 3 years ago, during which it was determined the cost of rehabbing the stadium was roughly $8 million to bring it up to current code. So the decision was made to demolish the stadium at that time. Moving forward, we have engaged an architect and several other engineering firms to come up with a demolition plan. We have abated all of the asbestos that was present in the stadium, along with tons of lead paint on the doors. On the 26th, we had a bid date. We received 5 sealed bids. Julia Morrison and I sat and opened every one of them, checked them all for accuracy to ensure that the bidders were compliant with state code. We used I had to write this down because I never remember it, the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Procedure, otherwise known as CUPCA. We followed that procedure for the bid threshold dollar amount and ensuring everything was in order. We were successful in getting a bid less than we anticipated, significantly less than the architect anticipated. So we're asking today that you would sign off on this contract so that we can rapidly begin the demolition process We have a great many capital projects revolving around that space this summer. You'll get an update on those in a bit. So we'd really like to get this approved now so that we can get the stadium completely removed. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I mean, I think it's great. I was just curious, is anything going to be recycled out of it?
Yes, probably 85%. Kernan Construction will be receiving the concrete debris even. So, yes, there is some that must go to a specific landfill because of the paint that's on the beam junctures where these massive steel beams are welded together. That's actually full of hazardous material. So they have to come and cut out like 4 inches and haul it off to a specific spot.
Trustee Deister?
What are we replacing it with?
The state does not pay for certain types of buildings. A stadium is number 2 on the list. So there is no way for the College of the Redwoods to petition the state for a new stadium. The stadium was originally built as a community project and was never paid for with state funds. So there is no current plan to replace the stadium with a stadium. The football field remains. We have compliant bleachers already in place that have been in place for 3 years now. So,
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, we will vote. All those in favor of awarding the demolition of the stadium contract to Resource Environmental, Inc. of Long Beach, California, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3.7, approve the student trustee privileges for 2018-2019, the upcoming student year. This is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve? Second? One of you like to second?
I second.
Okay. This lines out, as you know, the trustees' privileges for 2018-2019. President Snowflamer, do you have any additional comment?
No, I do not.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? Richard? Excuse me. For
So
Trustee
I
Doyle.
do have a question because I believe we just approved this follows the board member's compensation. And we just approved that if a board member misses a meeting, then the stipend is prorated out. Will that also apply to the student trustee, or does there need to be that language added?
I don't know the answer to your question, so let me research that for you.
It was just, I
Yeah.
mean,
If the policy says the student trustee will be compensated an amount
Same
equal to
way.
50% of the amount afforded board members, does it follow that it would be on the same terms?
I would think so, but I think, let me research that and get it back to the board.
Okay. Pending that particular, excuse me,
I mean, I'm happy to approve it. I just would like,
right,
More information.
yeah.
right, okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of approving the student trustee privileges for 2018-2019, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And we move on to our informational reports. And our first report is on community education with Ms. Prue Ratliff. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here to share the successes of community ed that we've had over the last year. My name is Prudence Ratliff, and everybody calls me Prue. I want to first start by thanking Dr. Snowflamer and Dr. Hill, who have been very supportive and given us the freedom to be able to grow and be successful at community ed. Without that support and freedom, we would not have been able to do what we've done over the past year. I also think it's really important to acknowledge my staff that I have. Chris Marquez, who's sitting right here, is the assistant director, and she has been very instrumental in putting in a lot of the classes that occurred over the year, including the fire line safety for hired vendors. She works a lot with the businesses to put in contract ed and things like that. I have 2 classified staff members, Megan Laney and Jinsey Smith. And both of those ladies are very dedicated to the students and have done a tremendous job during the month of March for the 8 fire line safety classes that we had in. They manually registered over 300 enrollments for that. And that was just 8 classes out of 25 that started during the month of March. So you can see that we've been pretty busy over there. And then the last comment I wanted to make is that I have a correction. So under the second chance offerings, on the construction maintenance technician class that was done at the Jefferson Community Center, there is a last sentence in there that said that they were doing something at the Alcohol and Drug Care Services at 14th and C Street. Unfortunately, they ran out of time and they were not able to get to that project. They were pretty disappointed that they didn't get to that project. And we hope that maybe when we run this class in future and we bring more second chance students in, that we will be able to do that, because my understanding is that that property really needs a lot of help, and they're a nonprofit, and that's where we're preferring to go to help with those areas. And then I just want to open it up to you guys for questions.
So Prudence, you're saying that the students performed hands-on work at Annie B. Ryan House only?
No, they, at the Jefferson Center, the Annie B. Ryan, and the Ink People Center for the Arts.
Gotcha.
Trustee Dorn?
So I know you're in charge of the real estate program as well.
Yes, sir.
Is there any movement toward doing all the brokers classes?
We have actually been talking about that a little bit, and some of the students have indicated on their evaluations that that's something they're interested in. Another thing that's come to our attention is also property management. So it's things that we're kind of investigating and seeing how they work and what's required. It takes a long time to design these things to make sure that we get them in right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Bacon?
Trustee Began?
Appreciated seeing the increased offerings at the Garberville site. I wondered what kind of numbers do these courses represent for that area?
Well, we had a mindfulness class that brought in 20. We had the women's health through the ages that brought in 20. The improv music class, the first time we ran that, it brought in 25, but then we tried to run it 2 more times and we're not able to run it. We just didn't get the numbers for it. And we also tried a parent effectiveness training class. We weren't able to make that one go either, unfortunately. So now we're working on some things for the summer. We have the workforce readiness skills class, and the nice thing about that class is that we have a lot of community members down there that are actually pitching in to pay the fee for students to be able to take that class. A lot of the businesses down there are saying, hey, I need people to work, and they don't even know how to do a resume or what customer service means or any of those things, and so that's what this class is going to address. And then I'm continuously exploring with Joan Becker, who is the person that I think Keith may have told you guys about in the past, to see what other things can happen as well.
Thank you. Also, I wanted to mention that President Snowflamer has shared some of your flyers for these classes, and they're very impressive, very nicely designed.
We have to thank Erin Jones for that.
Okay.
And the graphic designer, she has been fabulous. I just cannot sing her praises any higher. She is just, whenever we ask her, we give her things, and sometimes we give her just like crazy amounts of information, and she's able to really make it very nice and succinct and beautiful flyers that people are really commenting on, and so the thank you goes to her.
Yeah, I wanted to be sure to mention that, and thank you, President Snowflamer, for sharing that information with us. On your fire training, you said you had 300?
It was for
what's
the fire
fire-
line safety for
Fire
hired,
line safety.
for hired vendors. We had about 300
Yeah, I was
people.
going to say, 3 of those were my relatives, so out in Hoopa, and thank you for offering those extra classes in Hoopa, because there really is a need. They came over from Trinity County to participate.
Yes, we had gotten information saying, hey, you know, we need more classes out here in this. We're filling them out really fast, so we quickly put them in again, and then we got all the way through all of them. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the one in Del Norte because we weren't getting the signups there. This is the second year in a row we did not get signups in Del Norte. Not really sure why, and we're going to keep exploring that to figure out, you know, how can we get people in there. But we were able to put an additional one here in Eureka, so we were able to still accommodate those people.
That's great. There's a real need, especially at the beginning of fire season.
Yes.
My last question is, and maybe this is more appropriate to address to President Snowflamer, how does this attendance translate into any FTES type?
Actually, it does not.
It doesn't.
No, because actually, community ed is a self-support program by Ed Code. So it just translates into revenue for, not prudence, but for the program.
But maybe would lay the groundwork for students to come into our credentialed type programs.
Actually, we always hope to be able to link not just ComEd, but also the adult ed program to credit side.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Trustee Biggin, we actually, whenever students come in and they talk to us about different classes, we refer them, you know, we talk with them and figure out what it is that they're looking for. And if it looks like really what they're looking for is here in credit program, we refer them here. We also offer GED at our office. So adult ed is doing the GED prep classes around the corner, and then they come over and take the GED test with us. And that's what they need in order to be able to go in and take to be able to enroll in credit classes to get financial aid. And so they're specifically coming to us so that they can get that. And then we're always talking to the students about, hey, you know, you really just finished a college class. You could do college. You can do this. And that's a lot of them are just sort of needing that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Kelly?
You know, I notice a lot of the topics that are covered in these offerings are similar to what maybe people would search for on YouTube or these DIY channels online. Are there any plans or efforts to maybe make some of this a distance learning opportunity? Could we maybe work with marketing at all to try to time into, hey, you know, get in-person training here and use that as an advertising and a feeder funnel to college programs maybe?
So we do work with marketing. We work with Marty all the time, and we did a lot of radio advertising this year to get a lot of the face-to-face classes going and to get the recruitment in. I think it's the reason that we were actually really successful in our truck driving and filled that class for the first time in a few years. So we do that. As far as getting online classes, it kind of depends on what it is. You know, some classes will work really well for it, while others may not.
Yes, Trustee Deister?
What about the phlebotomy and the pharmacy assistant? Are you doing anything with either one of those?
Yes, we have pharmacy technician, June 4th is when it starts? May 14th, okay, sorry, got confused with a different one. So the pharmacy technician is starting May 14th. We had, Chris had an informational meeting and brought students in because one of the things that we learned in our last class was that the students didn't understand the math requirement, what they really needed it to be at to be able to be successful in the class. And so Chris did a little bit of extra, a lot of extra work actually, and she did an informational meeting and presented to them. She made a flyer that has actual math problems on it to help those students to understand what they needed. So that one's going to start May 14th. And the other one you asked about was phlebotomy. That one, we are going to have an informational meeting on July 12th on this campus. And then the class is scheduled to start September 12th.
So you're still getting good clinical sites for the,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Trustee Mallory?
Thank you, President Matthews, and thank you, Ms. Ratliff, for being here.
Thank you.
You kind of has responded to my question with other responses. And what I'm curious about is, what is your process or method to determine what the community need is for certain classes or courses? How do you do that? How do you make that determination as to what the need is?
So a lot of our classes were already in place. And then when it comes to personal enrichment classes, it's not usually based on what a need is in the community. It's that an instructor comes to us and says, hey, I'd like to teach stained glass, which we offered on this class and on this campus and was very popular. When it comes to the workforce training classes, a lot of times I'm working with the Workforce Development Board. For example, right now we have the Slingshot Health Grant that is in here that's allowing us to address the issue where we have medical assistants out there that either didn't go through a program or they went through a program and they never became certified and they need that certification because of what the insurance companies are requiring now. We are working with the Workforce Development Board and they've given us a certain amount of money so that we don't have to charge the students to take the class. So they'll take the class and then they're going to sit for the National Healthcare Association exam. So a lot of it, that's the way we identify it. I also, whenever something comes to me from the Workforce Development Board, I don't just go with, okay, the Workforce Development Board would like to see XYZ put in. I also go to ONET and I go to the labor market data analyst for the Employment Development Department for the state of California and ask for labor market data to see what's the projected growth, how many jobs we can expect in the next 10 years, what the pay is and things like that.
Thank you. Trustee Deister?
What do you do as far as letting the community know all the classes that are being offered? Like, I know you spoke about the radio.
Yes.
That'd be here, an individual class though, right, like the truck driving?
Yes.
But what about,
So we of course, we do the radio ads. We just today had the rotator slide go up on the main page for our next truck driving class. We did the same thing for the auto body when that was coming up. We do little ads in the North Coast Journal. We'll occasionally do press releases. If we're seeing that something's not moving, we'll do a press release. We have flyers that are being created through marketing department, and then we are going and putting those flyers up everywhere we possibly can.
great.
Don't forget about Facebook.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you, Trustee Biggin.
That's
Yes,
where I see
we
it, and then I share it, and people like that,
Yeah.
like it. So.
Absolutely. So we are putting it
Social.
on Facebook, and we also use Constant Contact. So anytime I'm out in the community and I'm meeting people, I'm gathering, business cards of different, like I got just about every business card of somebody who was associated with the job market when I first started, so that those people could know what we're offering, or with the Department of Rehabilitation, because quite often those entities will fund a student to come in since they can't get financial aid. $3,000 for medical existing is kind of expensive, so if they can get funding somewhere. So we get that information and we send out Constant Contact at least monthly.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I really like to see the Second Chance program. It kind of, in a way, supports others by, enrollment in them, but I think that's really a great use of our community ed program.
Yes, and I will tell you that right now, the Workforce Development Board has applied for another AB 2060 round of funding for Second Chance. And we're also hearing that there's some legislation that's going to be going through that will bring $37 million throughout the state to regions to continue doing that. And that has been pretty successful. Because we've got truck driving and auto body, and then we can also create something that is specific, like the construction tech was a closed cohort that only those students could go in, where truck driving and auto, they're in with the general public as well. It really opened things up and made more choices for those students.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, it's a great report. Okay, now we move on to 4.2 Student Success Scorecard. Dr. Hill?
So I think as many of you are very aware, the Chancellor's Office develops and publishes a student success scorecard each year. They use the data that all of the colleges submit through the Management Information System. And the scorecard has some, I think, some strengths and limitations. I think it's strong in that part of the metrics it provides are momentum points through a student's progression in college. So it looks at persistence, how many students are making it through the first year, how many students are making it through the middle point at 30 units completed, and then how many students are making it through a degree or certificate or transfer. The limitation that always gets brought up is the fact that it tracks cohorts over a 6-year period. So in an effort to try to give students enough time to have a successful outcome, and knowing that some students, a lot of students, will take a rather long time to move through a community college, they open up to that 6-year window. But what it means is that we're really tracking students who started here in 2011-12. And in 2011-12, which was just after I started here, we had been placed on show cause. We, because of the economy, our enrollments were starting to really fall. So we expect to see some sort of struggling metrics in this scorecard for a while, for the next few years at least. So one of the things that I looked at least is just to compare the breakdown in student groups and how they're doing, so this 11-12 cohort, to how students are doing in more current cohorts, and it's very promising. So the Chancellor's Office requires that the boards of each college review the scorecard and engage in a dialogue about the scorecard. So with that, I want to open it up to you if you have questions, if there's anything I can help explain. I also included a comparison of how we compare with colleges in our northern region to give you some context of how we're doing.
Comments, questions? I would comment that, kind of as you were pointing out, that a lot of the efforts around student success and equity and disaggregation of information and support of disadvantaged groups of students has happened since the beginning of this tracking of this cohort. So, as you're saying, a lot of those efforts don't reflect in a cohort that's tracked that far back.
Yes, I think our career technical education metrics have been strong consistently and remain strong here. So that wasn't really a surprise, but certainly some of the persistence issues are still showing up.
Trustee Iman?
Thank you, President Matthew. So next year, we will get 2012, 2011, 2012?
12-13.
12, 13?
Yeah.
Because this was 10, 11.
11-12, yeah.
So state expects the boards to engage in a dialogue in ancient history. And then come up with progress based on statistical proven facts.
I think their reasoning is that when they looked, if you go back just 3 or 4 years, that the completion rates and things just look really dismal. So I think that it was in an attempt to try to present metrics that look as good as possible, but I agree, it's difficult to make a lot of sense out of it, except that if you compare these to some of our more recent cohorts, it looks like we are making improvement, particularly with performance of our of African American students.
If I may add something to that, Trustee Matthews.
Yes, President Snowflame?
I think to add a little bit to what Dr. Hill was talking about, the state recognized a few years ago that boards were not talking about student success at all. And so this was one opportunity the state took to make sure the board actually had a discussion about student success and student equity and access.
And now we have added that as a monthly topic on our agendas. So each month, we're seeing something different, and I think that that's really important. Some of it is more recent than some of it. Yeah. Any other comments or questions from the board?
So Dr. Hill, when we look at the remedial numbers, so all the changes that you and the faculty are making this year and next year, we won't see results of that for another 4 or 5 years or so?
Yes,
Okay.
but I expect to see a great change.
In 4 or 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On the scorecard.
On the scorecard.
But we can look at our own data more recently, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we move on to item 4.3, update on capital projects. Mr. Roper.
Hello again. In the data I provided previously, you've had an update on the stadium demo, so I will move on from that one, and we'll talk about the utility infrastructure replacement / seismic strengthening project, otherwise known as UIR. We submitted our bid request to the state, to the Department of Finance, and it was rejected. It was not detailed enough. So Fred Sterner, who is a consultant who specializes in this, along with me, rewrote 476 pages for a new bid proposal. That was accepted by the Department of Finance on the 23rd of April. And on Friday, the 27th, they essentially cut us a check. They gave us a form that's called a DF-14D, and this form is very important as it allows us to bill the state for reimbursement on this project. So currently, the value of the project is $30,347,000, and there is a little bit of a kicker that will come when we do the water tanks, about an additional $2 million. So we are planning on going out to bid as quickly as possible, and I anticipate at the latest in the July meeting, bringing a bid proposal to you for approval. The next project is the tennis court rehabilitation. We have engaged Adams Surfacing to redo 5 of the 6 tennis courts. The 6th tennis court is our sand volleyball pit. This is the same firm that redid the tennis courts in Ferndale. So if you'd like to see the quality of their work, just take a drive to Ferndale and you'll see it. It's very, very nice. Our Proposition 39 consultant, Dean Davison, was able to squeeze PG&E to agree to replace all of the lighting at the tennis courts and allow us to install a lighting control panel. This saved us $32,000, so we don't pay a penny for that. PG&E pays it for us. This work, they had a bid walkthrough on the lighting today, so we will probably be sending out a contract for that next week. And this work is scheduled to begin in July and be finished by August 12th. A year and a half ago, 5 trees fell on our track on the 100-meter dash, 3 at one end, 2 at the other, damaging over 20% of the overall track surface. It's taking us 1.5 years to find a firm willing to come here and actually do the work. We've been working with Keenan, our insurance carrier, and Julia Morrison has sent them a notice stating, yes, we'll pay the $25,000 while they will pay the additional $212,000. So the track will be completely resurfaced this summer. We'll also take this opportunity to bring the steeplechase into NCAA compliance. And even the long jump pit is getting redone. So I have a contract package that I just got right before the meeting, ready for your signature, sir. We're also replacing the scoreboard at the field. The original scoreboard is not just end of repair, it's end of life. In fact, it's probably 2 decades past end of life. Our electrician on staff, Max Caps, has been buying parts off eBay to make this thing work for the last 3 years. It can no longer function at all. It's even a safety hazard. So Bob Brown squeezed Pepsi-Cola for a whole bunch of money. So Pepsi's buying our scoreboard. We took the package to DSA last Thursday. We were very circumspect in the type of scoreboard we purchased. We purchased one that's called pre-checked. So DSA has already looked it over and approved it previously. So it took about 5 minutes to get DSA stamp out. Along with a few trees that have to be removed at the track, we're moving that one rapidly forward. Creative Arts Building. According to the Facilities Planning Department at the state, the Creative Arts Building has been funded for both preliminary funding and working drawings funding, and we will see that money July 1st. So we will have 1 year in which to get the entire project stamped out at DSA, and then we'll get the construction money for it a year from July. So Creative Arts is a go unless the entire budget collapses. The gymnasium complex, which also we have submitted and received approval on the projects for, is currently on the draft 2018-2019 capital outlay spending plan. We have added this into the May revised budget, and we're hopeful that we will get funding for it July 1st as well. Currently, we are set to receive $4,334,000 for the gymnasium complex drawing package. I do not have a firm read from the Department of Finance on whether or not that one's going to make it through this year. Like Creative Arts is a no-doubter. But if it doesn't make it through this year, it will make it through next year. For both Creative Arts and the gymnasium complex, we would like to use the same architectural firm, primarily because the drawings they did for us in the initial phases of these projects are what helped get the projects approved. So there's no coming up to speed for them. They already know what we need to do. I believe you all have received a package showing what they have done in the past. Should I talk about the student union or?
No.
Okay, very good, sir. So are there any questions on any of the?
I better back up and explain why. Stephen just came from DSA yesterday afternoon, and we have some good news and bad news within the student union. But in accordance with my internal process, I really want to talk to our groups prior to talking to the board in open session about what our plan is for the student union, because there are different ways I want to go, and I want to make sure that CSEA, the Senate, everyone has some buy-in on the process.
Any questions on any of the?
Trustee Imon?
Richie?
Trustee Dorn?
So where's the Creative Arts Building going? I forgot.
So
I think.
next week, we have a meeting with the California Geological Survey. We will be presenting 2 options. There's a new fault that's been identified. If you dig a hole at CR, you find a new fault. This particular fault could change the direction of Creative Arts or the new gym by 50 feet in one direction or another. So what we want to have from CGS is kind of a final determination on, you go do these tests, and then we'll agree that it goes here or here. So basically, it's either going to be on the baseball field or the softball field.
One more, and it's perhaps to Dr. Snowflamer. Are you making any press releases on how much money's being spent at CR and how much money's being brought into the local economy, et cetera?
I was waiting for the good word about the UIR project, and I'll be working with Marty on that.
There is one issue with the local economy component that is difficult to overcome. These are 100% state-funded projects, so that means that we are disallowed from using local preference. We tried, we ran it up the state flagpole, and we ran it up our own legal flagpole, and the determination is the same. Since it's 100% state-funded, we are not allowed to apply local preference. So we are required by CUPCA to accept the lowest bid.
Trustee Iman?
Thank you, President Matthews. Stephen, when you get at the very beginning of your report, you said we got form such and such. In effect, they cut us a check for 32+ million. Does that amount of money have any room for cost overruns, or?
Yes, there's a 5% cost overrun in it, but there is also an additional kicker for the water tanks. We were able to get an augmentation to this project after the project was approved. It had been 13 years since the state provided an augmentation on any project. So that particular component of this project will require specific board approval on the bid just for the water tanks, and then we take that approval back to the state and they give us additional money. We were given $347,000 early on, kind of as a gift, to do the preliminary engineering.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Thank you for a report covering a great deal of work.
Thank you, ma'am.
May I add something?
Yes.
I apologize. I'm just catching up. I think hey, Stephen, if you can sit down one more time, please, because the question's for you. Because I think what Trustee Imad was I think talking about, if I can remember correctly, is that over years, we've had not only cost overruns, but change orders. So we've spent significant money in change orders. So what are we doing to guard against change orders at this point?
Outstanding question.
Thank you.
In the
You
400.
didn't say that when I asked.
In the 476 pages that we diligently wrote is a great deal of language regarding change orders and regarding who is responsible for what. This type of contract is significantly different than any other construction contract College of the Redwoods has ever produced. I told you that the first go-around was completely rejected. It was rejected by the Department of Finance because it did not have enough teeth. So previously, I asked you all to approve, and thank you for approving, the bidder's pre-qualification document. That is the first part of teeth. The second part is that we have changed the language so that if the contractor fails to perform, the contractor is required by the contract, to hire his own replacement within 30 days. This type of project, a utility replacement project, there's only been 2 of them that the state has funded. And the last one was Solano College quite a while ago. So there is not a great deal of background on it, but on both of the previous projects, there were many, many problems. So, and luckily enough, Fred Sterner worked on one of those, so we were able to leverage his knowledge, and the contract work that came out of, that one was from Compton College. So, I did have one other comment. I believe I misinterpreted your question earlier regarding portables. In all of these contracts, the portables are the responsibility of the contractor. College of the Redwoods will not be purchasing or leasing any portables. The state does not like you to do that when they are paying the bill. That is incumbent upon the contractor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can go now?
That's up to the board president.
Thank you. We move to 4.4, recognition of college accomplishments, student successes, and employee honors. And President Snowflamer has provided us with quite a written report covering these.
Yes.
And we want to add our recognition and appreciation to all of those programs and persons recognized in the report. Is there anything additional that you would like to add?
The only two items, one is I need to change where it says, I don't know what page it is because it's all one run-on page for the trustees, but where it says 10 CR student athletes have signed intent letters. Actually, it's 12 as of yesterday, so which is very good. But also, Marty and I have finished a My Word op-ed. It's very similar to what I did at the end of fall semester that was submitted, kind of summarizing all these accomplishments. And that was sent into the My Word this morning. So hopefully the trustees and the community will see that sometime this week.
Great. Any comments or questions? There's lots of things to note. I thought it was very exciting about the Yurok language class because that has been a project for a long time. And some of the issues surrounded how to meet qualifications in an untypical field with not the usual kinds of programs supporting it. So I'm really excited about that coming about. Anything else?
Not really a
Yes.
question, a piggyback on your comment. I was pleased to see that the instructor that they chose for that is one that the Klamath Trinity District has used in the past for high school, and she is a very respected language teacher. So that was good to see.
Okay, we move on to 4.5, update on FCMAT recommendations. And the list is in packet. And this is a semi-annual report update, I believe.
It is.
And President Snowflamer, do you have any additional comments?
Thank you. We have several of these items that I've noted as complete, so I really don't want to focus too much administrative attention on those, but there are 4 FCMAT recommendations that I put into the annual planning process that the college and the each site should be paying attention to in an operational way. So I will give updates to the board, not semi-annually, but annually when the annual report comes out.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? All right. Then we move on to 4.6, status update on AACJC recommendations. President Snowflamer?
Thank you. The only recommendation that we have to report on, I believe, Dr. Hill, March of 2019, is recommendation 7. So again, if the trustees know, we had 8 recommendations, only 1 for compliance, and that's almost unheard of for CR, which is really good work on faculty, staff, and administration's part. So we are very, very close to satisfying this particular compliance recommendation. So I would imagine that our March 2019 report will have that completely satisfied, but also means that we're not losing focus on the other 7 recommendations. So we're still hyper-focused on all of those. So I don't know when we have to report on these, probably our midterm report? 2021? Okay. Thank you.
Comments or questions from the board? All right, thank you. Then we move on to organizational reports. First, we have a report from Academic Senate with our Senate co-president, Carrie Mayer. And we want to note that this is your last time reporting to us on behalf of the Senate. And we thank you. We look forward to seeing further meetings with you in your new position.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, President Matthews, President Snowflamer, members of the board. Under Title V of the California Education Code, the primary function of the Academic Senate is to make recommendations with respect to academic and professional matters. These academic and professional matters are often referred to as the 10+1 areas. And they include important policy development and implementation matters related to things like curriculum, degree requirements, educational program development, student preparation and success, and accreditation. Listed last on the 10+1 list, or as I like to call it, number 11, is a kind of a catch-all called Other Academic and Professional Matters as are mutually agreed upon between the governing board and the Academic Senate. And today I'd like to focus my report on one area that falls within the scope of other academic and professional matters, and that is our faculty hiring process. Guided by AP 7120-3, Recruitment and Hiring of Full-Time Faculty, and informed by AP 7217, Faculty Prioritization Process, the faculty and the administration work collaboratively to determine which faculty positions will be recommended for hiring prioritization, and then, pending direction by the president on the number of positions to be approved for hiring, screening committees are formed, candidates are interviewed, teaching demonstrations are presented, deliberations are made, recommendations are forwarded to the president, fingers are crossed, offers are made and hopefully accepted, and names are finally forwarded to you for approval and appointment to the faculty at College of the Redwoods. This is a long, rigorous, and precarious process that can be impacted sometimes by seemingly capricious forces like how and where job announcements are advertised, the number of other faculty positions in those particular disciplines that are available statewide, the cost of the round-trip airfare from just about anywhere to Eureka, the friendliness of the screening committee and anyone else the candidate might run into on their stay at on the North Coast, just to name a few. When it all works well, we find just the right candidates who possess an intellectual rigor, a love of students and teaching, and who are a good fit not only for our institution, but for our community. When it doesn't work well, we end up with a failed search, or perhaps even worse, a hire that, for whatever reason, just didn't work out. The Academic Senate takes our shared responsibility for this important work very seriously. And so last year, after a failed search in my discipline, Communication Studies, Pete Blakemore and I talked about needing to take a critical look at our hiring processes for faculty in an attempt to refine and improve those processes. During the fall semester, we formed an ad hoc committee of the Academic Senate to assess our process and to make recommendations to the president and to the Director of Human Resources about how to strengthen that process. The committee met, forwarded their recommendations to the full Senate, where they were approved and forwarded on to the administration. President Snowflamer graciously accepted many of those recommendations, and Wendy Bates and her staff in Human Resources worked with the 2 faculty screening committees this spring to implement many of the recommendations. And we've hired 2 amazing candidates, one in Communication Studies and one in Biology, who will join us as tenure-track colleagues in the fall. In addition to the recommendations related to the screening process, members of the Faculty Prioritization Committee met this spring to evaluate that process as well. And we had a very productive discussion about how to improve the faculty prioritization process to make the process run more effectively. I share this information with you to let you know that the Academic Senate and the administration are committed to the improvement of our existing processes and structures and are engaged in the ongoing assessment and quality improvements so important to maintaining a healthy college. The benefits of a critical evaluation of our processes with an eye towards adjusting them to make them more effective can have tremendous benefits. In this case, our assessment and analysis helped us find 2 outstanding new colleagues. And on a personal note, as Carol mentioned, today is my last time that I will sit with you as a representative of the faculty and the Academic Senate. I have an extremely lucky faculty member and a rare one. I don't know if it speaks more to the job or to my faulty memory. I'm one of the few faculty members who've had 2 terms as Senate co-president. I hold in such high esteem Barbara Morrison, who I think had 3 terms as Senate co-president. It's been an honor and a privilege to represent the faculty to you, and I appreciate your openness to hearing from us about important issues that impact our students and our community. And I look forward to seeing you in my new role. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Trustee Iman?
Thank you, President Matthews. Thank you, Carrie, for all your service that goes back decades. 2 questions. At what point through that process that you described at the beginning of your presentation do you do a background check on the
At the very end.
The very end.
At the very end, yeah.
And then when you do not find qualified applicants or applicants that are not willing to go to the next step, do they provide you with a reason? Do you have a sense as to why that was?
Sometimes, sometimes not, and I think that would be really helpful. It was so wonderful for me personally after we made the offer, or Dr. Snowflamer made the offer to the COM candidate. Once that had been all approved and secured, our dean, George Patamianos, and Lisa Sales, my other communication studies colleague, and I got on a cell phone and called him just to congratulate him, and we really wanted to make him feel welcome and to kind of like hedge our bets and make sure he was coming. And so we left him a message on his voicemail, and he got right back to us. We invited him up. I told him, you know, if he didn't want to spend money on a hotel, he could stay at my house. And George offered to throw a party, and he took us up on it. And that was wonderful. And this was 2 weeks ago, I guess, spent 4 days at my house with my husband and I, which is kind of weird to invite somebody you don't really know to your house. And he brought his fiance. It was amazing. They're lovely. They're wonderful. He's going to be fantastic. It confirmed everything I learned through the process. But I had a nice opportunity to chat with him about the process and to chat with him about some of his other experiences at other colleges that he interviewed for this spring. And it was good confirmation for me that we're on the right track with the recommendations that we made. Some of the things he noted were the financial assistance to get here. Travel's really expensive. That made a big difference. He totally had an amazing meeting with Dr. Snowflamer, and he said it didn't feel like it normally feels when you go into the president's office, like he was being grilled. He said it felt like he was just talking to a friend and a colleague, and he really commented that relaxed him so much as he was getting ready to then come into his interview. He also mentioned one of the recommendations that the Senate subcommittee made was that we add a kind of a hospitality element to our interview process. In the past, I mean, when I was hired, the committee took me to lunch. It was lovely. It was, of course, I had worked here already, so it was all people I knew, so it was like going to lunch with your friends. But we used to take candidates to lunch, and at some point we stopped doing that, and the Senate's ad hoc committee recommended that we revitalize that, we bring that back, and we did. And this particular candidate went to dinner with one of our new faculty hires, Derek Glavich, who teaches in our construction technology program. And it was serendipitous that those two ended up having so much in common, and they had a fantastic dinner. And Chris Lancaster, our new hire, commented that that felt so welcoming, and it was so lovely to be able to make a connection with somebody who wasn't on the committee and to be able to ask all of those questions that he might not feel comfortable asking or didn't have time to ask us. So I think those are really important changes that we've made. One thing he's mentioned to me in all of his, Chris mentioned to me in all of his experience interviewing this spring, whenever he would talk to his fiance, she was getting confused about all of the colleges, and she's like, remind me now, which one's Redwoods? And he said, his go-to answer was, remember, they're the really friendly ones. They're the really nice ones. And I thought that was so telling, because he felt that connection to us. And I think that doesn't happen on accident. That needs to be an intentional move on the part of our committee members and on all of our colleagues. And he noted that anyone he talked to here was super friendly and very helpful for him. So I think those are really good recommendations that we need to keep building on. So,
Do you ever find out from those that don't choose to come here that their spouse or significant other could not get a job?
that's common. That's common. Not just with us, but I know it's common in other industries as well.
The medical field is constant, that's a constant.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Jerry.
Trustee Mallory?
First of all, I want to join Trustee Imad in saying how much I've enjoyed working with you over the years. I think you were the very first faculty member I met when I first came on the board some 11 years ago. And I appreciated you reaching out to me, and it was, felt like it's just been a very positive experience working with you and just observing you on the
Thank
board.
you.
So thank you for all your service.
Thank you.
And I look forward to your next service to the community college. The question I have, and it might be more appropriately addressed to President Snowflamer. First of all, thank you for sharing all that you have implemented in terms of enhancing the hiring process. And as we know, candidates are not only being interviewed by the search committee, but the search committee in the college also has to kind of sell itself too. And obviously, you got that email that it works both ways. In the recommendations that you made, are there any recommendations that are being implemented to enhance the diversity of the applicant pool?
well, okay, so that's a great question. And this was really what prompted me to talk to Pete about taking this on as a project of the Senate this year. Because last year, when we had our comm studies search, we had a more diverse pool. And when it came time to the face-to-face interview, our diverse candidates dropped off. And I wondered why that might be. And the more I thought about it, they were young, first-generation college students themselves, not full-time employed yet. They had no money. And it was at that point where, and one of the candidates told us, it was at that point where he was pricing airline flights from Los Angeles, where he lived, to come up here and interview, which is, a roll of the dice. He couldn't afford it. And that was such a bummer for me, because I think we lost that bit of diversity that we had in our pool at that point, where he had to make a financial decision that was very difficult for him, and he couldn't afford to take that chance that he would spend $1,100 on a plane ticket and not get the job. So that was one of the concerns that I had coming through that process. And that's why I was so grateful when President Snowflamer agreed to the ad hoc committee's recommendation about subsidizing in some way some of that travel. It's very expensive to get here. It's very remote. And if you're working, at 3 different community colleges in LA, and we're interviewing you in the middle of the semester, and you have to drive here, it's not going to happen. And if you can't afford to fly, it's very difficult. So.
Thank you.
If I-
Did you
may
want
I-
to add something?
Yes, I
Yes.
do. One thing that Carrie, but also Carrie worked with Wendy on is actually rewriting our brochure. So the brochure that describes the institution and the environment is more appealing to all candidates, not those who are diverse. So they really work together to reshape the process from the recruitment to the actual hiring process.
I looked at other brochures for other positions, and they were really selling their area, and they sounded so awesome. And then I looked at ours, and it was kind of like, we dare you to come work for us. And it wasn't highlighting the amazing area that we live in. And so we kind of worked on redrafting that approach was like, hey, come teach in the most beautiful, geographic area in the world and be near the beach and the mountains. And so it's a little, it's got a more of a PR spin on it than just a like, here's our job and come apply. So.
Thank you. Any other? Thank you very much. 5.2, report from CRFO, Mr. Haley. We understand you will be back in June.
Yes,
All right.
until June 30th, I believe. It's nice to have a job, right? Trustee Matthews and President Snowflamer, members of the board, thank you for agendizing us. It's not my favorite week. The week before finals is rough. Like, I got a stack of exams over there, and they look fun to grade, but they're actually not fun to grade. But it's a good time, I think, to be retrospective of things that we've done and things that we work for. And I find in my own, the way that I teach, it's hard for me to maybe to look back on a semester and see, I can see growth, but I really appreciate seeing growth from students over the course of 2 semesters and a year and multiple years, also Dr. Hill. Anyway, so it's an enjoyable time, but it's made me think about what's going to come up pretty soon for us, which is negotiations. And I say that and I almost want to cry because it seems like we just played this game, but here we are. And I think one thing that's somewhat interesting is President Snowflamer and I and the HR director, we've talked a couple times about setting up dates for the fall. So I'm kind of hopeful for that. And it really brings to the point, or it allows us to maybe, at least for me, to reflect on, this last round that we went through. And you don't need me to tell you that it was difficult. But I really anticipate a future at CR where there's transparency regarding the budget, and that the process promotes confidence, right? And even I've listened to the comments from you all even in the last couple months, and I don't know, I kind of anticipate kind of a new way forward. And also I anticipate a future at CR where we really rely again on the tenets of interest-based bargaining, which is something that the president has expressed interest in. And it ties in maybe with what President Mayer, Co-President Mayer was saying about relationship and the value of relationship, right? And particularly, I think when we work in small places, the way that we treat each other and the way that we treat our place, where we work, and just the issues that are around it is so critical. And anyway, it makes me hopeful for what the future is, and that the faculty and the district are able to find a way that's reasonable and fair, and that we can resolve this quickly and efficiently. So, thank you all.
Thank you. See you in June. Organization report from classified staff. Tammy Ingman.
I'm always the loud one, but good afternoon. In continuing with the recognition that's going on today, I made myself some notes this morning, and I wanted to highlight some of the departments and those classified employees that have been doing such good work. To our network administrators, Eric Sorensen, Kurt Frisknecht, Jose Ramirez, and Mark Bernards. A couple weeks ago, ASCR hosted a meet and greet with some of the UCs. And there was a severe snag when it came time to get that going. These 4 guys stepped up and went above and beyond in a matter of minutes to make sure that everything went smoothly for ASCR. I know they were appreciative, and with the issue that came up, I was appreciative that they were right there to help take care of things. To Downing Counseling and Advising, Lupita Martinez, Amber Atkins, and former employee Morgan Reeves. We hosted 3 days of middle school visits that we renamed, Redwood Days. These ladies were instrumental in helping plan these visits from over 1,300 middle school students, from over 31 schools locally. And there's a lot of work, and I'm sure some blood, sweat, and tears that goes into planning that. On the other side of the house, over in enrollment services, doing graduation petition reviews, the number I received from Tatiana Robinson was that there was probably over 800 graduation petitions that were received, and that includes certificates of recognition and certificates of achievement. I'm proud to say that one of mine was in there, not to toot my own horn. The biggest one would be our recent DataTel migration that happened. Participants in the DataTel migration included Jose Ramirez, Tom Cossey, and James Hayes. This is something that really occurred over the last 2.5 years to migrate the DataTel system. The guys had pointed out that keep in mind that this migration and this planning all took place while they were keeping up with their day-to-day duties. Some of that included 10-hour days, weekend work. One thing that was kind of cool in these comments that I would point out is that for the real estate part of the system of this, we are currently using a rack that takes up about 3 inches of space, opposed to the current equipment, the prior equipment that was taking about 4 to 5 feet. And finally, I wanted to recognize Tom Cossey and Jose Ramirez on behalf of the classified staff and CSEA for their continued dedication and diligence in the negotiations with the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Thank you very much. Management Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Brady Reed. I am the Director of Trio Success, and I'll be the President of Management Council starting in July. So I'm stepping in a little early here today. Nothing major, just a couple announcements. Kente Johnson, the Director of Special Programs, wanted me to announce that the CARE and CalWorks programs have been working hard to plan and host a regional conference to be held at the Red Lion this June 1st and 2nd. Also, in honor of Classified School Employee Appreciation Week coming up on May 21st through 25th, members of the Management Council are in the process of planning an appreciation luncheon in both Eureka and Del Norte to show our gratitude for the hard work and dedication of our classified employees. The events will most likely take place on Thursday and Friday of that week, but more details will be forthcoming. And finally, we would like to acknowledge and congratulate all of our upcoming CR graduates. A number of managers will be attending commencement ceremonies to volunteer and to watch our students celebrate their accomplishments. And that's about it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our student trustee is not here.
Our student trustee is taking, he's in class.
He's in class. Okay. Well, this would be his last meeting, so we will note with appreciation his stepping in to fill the position. And I have been told that he has been accepted to University of California at Berkeley for fall semester, fall quarter, I guess that would be for UC. And so that's a wonderful accomplishment for him. Okay. And we will now move on to administrative reports. And we will begin with President Snowflamer.
Thank you. I don't have a lot of verbal report to give to the trustees. I think that we talked a lot today, but I really want to show some appreciation for the multitude of accomplishments that our departments and individuals in this college have really done in the last year and the last semester. It's really been an honor to serve as the president and superintendent of this district, to work alongside such talented faculty, staff, and administrators. This has really been the best job I've ever had. Currently the best job I have, I should say. I shouldn't say past tense, I'm just about to go through the evaluation process.
comments, questions from the board on Dr. Snowflamer's report? No. Okay. Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Hill.
I just wanted to add a few things. An update to the AB 705, the remedial reform. I feel really lucky to be at CR with the math and English faculty that we have. They have really stepped up to work to reinvent the remedial English and math sequences. Seeing what's going on at other colleges and some resistance, it's really heartwarming. And I know that it's probably scary because obviously they've been really invested in what they do and doing a really good job. And so to rethink that and move into new territory, I think is probably really challenging. And so I just really appreciate the really good work that they're doing to keep us sort of ahead of the game in something that's going to be really good for students. And then the English and math departments have been working with our counseling faculty as well as our academic support center staff. And so they've been all working together on how are we going to go about placing students without AccuPlacer. And it's happened fairly suddenly, definitely a really good thing, but a huge move. And so in the spirit of guided pathways, I'm seeing all these groups come together and work together very closely. So it's really good to see. The other update I wanted to provide is when I wrote my report, we hadn't received word that about the Innovation Award yet for Pelican Bay. And so I just really want to congratulate everybody who's worked on the Pelican Bay program to date. I found out that only 16% of the institutions who applied for the Innovation Award received one. So it was highly competitive, and it was totally based on the merits of what we've done so far in that program. And so we will be receiving $1.2 million to support additional courses, the ability for an inmate to receive a degree, and to provide enhanced counseling and advising and enrollment services there. So I'm really proud of everybody who was involved in that.
Yes. Questions or comments from the board? I have one question. What is the time frame for spending that money? Is it limited to spend it all in a year, or it's over a period of time?
I believe we can extend it to 5 years. I think it starts at I believe a 3-year, but I think there's some leeway in that.
Great. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Thank you. Vice President of Student Development, Joe Hash.
Thank you. Just 2 items. One is part of my report, and that is we're eagerly anticipating the arrival of our transfer specialist that Humboldt State will be funding and sending to us. Hopefully at the end of this month. That's the anticipated arrival date. We are readying a space for them in the Counseling and Advising Center. We're not just going to put them in a cubicle or an office. We're carving out a portion of our transfer center to make a home for Humboldt State's transfer specialist and a home for Humboldt State. We're going to dedicate that space just to them and make it, like I said, a real home for students to feel like, you know, they're in a little slice of Humboldt State right here at CR. The other thing I wanted to mention that occurred just this last Friday, the CR track team attended the Golden Valley Conference Championship meet at Shasta College. Our men's team finished in 2nd place, so congratulations to Reed Elmore and the team. We had some individual champions, some of them in multiple events, and so in the theme of recognizing folks for their accomplishments, I'd like to quickly recognize these student athletes for their outstanding accomplishments. Nicholas Brichta was champion in 3 events, 800 meters, 1,500 meters, and the 10K. Jasper Severn was champion in 2 events, the 5K and the steeplechase. Leroy Williams was a champion in 110-meter hurdles. Tyreek Washington in the high jump. J.W. Doth in the discus. Angelo Flores in the javelin, and I'm sure you're aware that he is currently sitting second in the nation with his longest throw this year. And on the women's side, Savannah Henniger was a repeat champion in the hammer throw. She was champion last year and also this year. So congratulations to all those student athletes.
Any comments or questions from the board? Thank you. It's obviously a great program.
If I can add one comment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Trustees, just so you know, in the next board meeting, you'll have a 6.4, which will be Julia Morrison's report as a CBO. So I look forward to having her written comments next time.
Okay, we move on to item 7, approve trustee request to place an item on a future agenda or request staff to give a regular report. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Trustee Dorn?
I'm not sure if this is the proper area. I just talked to Dr. Snowflamer about it before the board meeting. As most of you know, I just got back from Kenya today. And in Kenya, at the learning institutions along the road, before you even enter into the property of the colleges or community colleges, on one side there is the mission statement, and on the other side is the vision statement. And it's pretty impressive because as you're entering the campus, this is the first thing you see. And I shared that with Dr. Snowflamer. And I don't know if it's, you know, in Del Norte's an easy one to do that at. I don't know if it's something the board would want to discuss or let Dr. Snowflamer think about it or what, but I wanted to at least let the board and the community know about this.
You have a comment?
Yes, I really do. I appreciate the idea, so I'd like to give some more time to think about it, because I think it's very valid, and give me some time to work with Marty, because we're looking at way signage, both in our marquees in Del Norte as well as here, and we'll see if we can see what happens in our planning process. Thank you. Good idea.
Okay. Any other requests for report or agenda item? If not, we will move to close session, and in closed session, we will be discussing items 10.1 and 10.2, and 10.1 will be regarding a tenure report and recommendations, and 10.2 will be the evaluation of the president superintendent pursuant to Government Code 54957. We will adjourn to closed session, and we will take, what?
10 minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry, I should ask, thank you for the reminder, if there is any public comment regarding any item to be discussed in closed session. Seeing none, we will take a 10-minute recess. We are adjourned to closed session.